Hello. I saw this post today that starts with the words allegiance to aliveness. Allegiance to aliveness. That word, allegiance, I feel like it's the first time I've heard it used in a context besides this so-called poem that we had to recite in school as kids, pledging allegiance to some sort of flag or other. Yeah, I never particularly found an interest in the word allegiance. At least not then. But in this context, allegiance to aliveness. Suddenly, I like it. I like it a lot. And it feels somewhat more regal than the word alliance. I feel like alliance and allegiance are kind of similar, right? Because alliance is like standing by someone's side or something's side, and allegiance is like the same thing, I think. Maybe I should Google this, but yeah, I feel like allegiance just feels more regal than alliance. In this post, there is a quote, and it goes like this: choosing joy in a world rife with reasons for despair is a countercultural act of courage and resistance. Choosing it, not despite the abounding sorrow we barely survive, but because of it. Because joy, like music, like love, is one of those entirely unnecessary miracles of consciousness that give meaning to survival with its bright allegiance to the most alive part of us. Okay, what does that mean? The first part, I totally get. Choosing joy in a world rife with reasons for despair is an act of courage and resistance. And that we choose joy not despite sorrow, but because of it. Because joy is an unnecessary miracle of consciousness. I feel like it kind of means we have the ability to experience joy. And isn't just the fact that we have the ability to do that amazing? So why not choose it, I guess? I feel like I follow this whole quote until we get to the part that says, you know, joy, like music, like love, is one of those things, is one of those entirely unnecessary miracles of consciousness, this part, that give meaning to survival with its bright allegiance to the most alive part of us. Joy gives meaning to survival. It's an interesting way of looking at it. With its bright allegiance to the most alive part of us. Joy is in allegiance with the most alive part of us. Yeah. I mean, what times do you feel most alive? When you feel joyful? When I feel joyful? Maybe. I mean, other times too. Anytime I feel anything, really, is when I feel alive. Versus something like dissociation or like kind of mundane scrolling through something. So this quote has been written by Maria Popova. And I was Googling her because I was curious, like, who writes that sort of sentence? It's one sentence, but it holds such interesting thoughts. Oh, before we get to me Googling her, here's what I was thinking about. I once heard someone say that kindness comes from strength. And I connected that with this quote. I think maybe it's similar. Just like kindness comes from strength, maybe joy and aliveness come not from childishness or innocence or naivety, but from audacity. From having the audacity to choose joy. When the world, in my opinion, sometimes seems to think that it's disrespectful to be joyful when bad things are happening in different places in the world or even in our own lives. Like sometimes we think joy is disrespectful to our own other emotions. And you know, I don't know. It doesn't have to be. We don't have to say that joy is disrespectful. Just a thought. But I really like that it comes from audacity. It takes a certain audacity, doesn't it, in this world to be joyful. So I'm Googling Maria Popova, who wrote this. Let's see who she is. Google says that she is a Bulgarian essayist. She was born in 1984. Wow, that's quite a year to be born in. That is the year, that's the title of the book by George Orwell. And she has written a few books, and one of them is called The Universe in Verse. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a smart title, such a good play on words. The universe in verse. Does it mean like inverse, as in like opposite or reversed? Does it mean in verse, as in like in prose, in writing? Oh, I like that title. Let's see. Ooh, she has an Instagram. Writer, lover of trees and books, creator of the Marginalian, which was once upon a time called Brain Pickings, and she's a maker of bird divinations. I like that. Writer, lover of trees and books. My own website is like kind of similar. It just says like, hi everyone, I love trees. It's not exactly word for word what it says, but it's very similar. So let's see. What is the marginalian? My name is Maria Popova, and the marginalian is a record of my reading and reckoning with our search for meaning, sometimes through science and philosophy. That's cool. Let's see what this looks like. If you are new here, welcome. Here are some of my favorite pieces from the years to give you a sense of scope and sensibility. This really feels like I'm reading my own website. Not totally, but I like it. It just feels kind of cozy. That's what it feels like. The Universe in Verse book says 15 portals to wonder through science and poetry. Wow. Anyway, the first piece that's written or posted here is called Love Anyway. I want to know what this is. So let's see. Love Anyway by Maria Popova. You know that the price of life is death. Oh, that's the start of it. That's a start. You know that the price of life is death, that the price of love is loss, and still you watch the golden afternoon light fall on a face you love, knowing that the light will soon fade, knowing that the loving face too will one day fade into indifference or bone, and you love anyway. Because life is transient but possible. Because love alone bridges the impossible and the eternal. I think about this and a passage from Louise Erdrich's 2005 novel, The Painted Drum. Life will break you. Nobody can protect you from that. And living alone won't either, for solitude will also break you with its yearning. You have to love, you have to feel. It is the reason you are here on earth. You are here to risk your heart. You are here to be swallowed up. And when it happens that you are broken, or betrayed, or left, or hurt, or death brushes near, let yourself sit by an apple tree and listen to the apples falling all around you in heaps, wasting their sweetness. Tell yourself that you tasted as many as you could. This, of course, is what life evolved to be. An area of affirmation, rising like luminous steam from the dark, cold silence of an indifferent cosmos that will one day swallow all of it. Every living thing is its singer and its steward, something the poetic paleontologist Lauren Isley captures in an uncommon poignancy in his 1957 essay, The Judgment of Birds, found in his altogether magnificent posthumous collection, The Star Thrower. Ah, this is a painting. Oh no, it's not a painting. There's just a picture here of a bird holding a rock. And it's called The Raven by Jack Morris from The Lost Words. Lost Words. I've heard that somewhere before. Have I? Oh my gosh. Anyway, we'll get back to that. Isley recounts resting beneath a tree after a day of trekking through fern and pine needles, collecting fossils, dozing off in the warm sunlight, and then suddenly being awakened to a great commotion to see an enormous raven with a red and squirming nestling in its beak, perching on a crooked branch above. He writes, "Into the glade fluttered small birds of half a dozen varieties, drawn by the anguished outcries of the tiny parents. No one dared to attack the raven, but they cried there in some instinctive common misery. The bereaved and the unbereaved don't know what that word means. The glade filled with their soft rustling and their cries. They fluttered as though to point their wings at the murderer. There was a dim, intangible ethic he had violated, that they knew. He was a bird of death, and he, the murderer, the black bird at the heart of life, sat on there, glistening in the common light, formidable, unmoving, unperturbed, untouchable. The sighing died. It was then I saw the judgment. It was the judgment of life against death. I will never see it again so forcefully presented. I will never hear it again in notes so tragically prolonged. For in the midst of protest, they forgot the violence. There, in the clearing, the crystal note of a song sparrow lifted hesitantly in the hush, and finally, after painful fluttering, another checked the song, and then another, the song passing from one bird to another, doubtfully at first, as though some evil thing were being slowly forgotten, till suddenly they took heart and sang from many throats joyously together, as birds are known to sing. They sang because life is sweet and sunlight beautiful. They sang under the brooding shadow of the raven. In simple truth, they had forgotten the raven, for they were the singers of life and not of death. Couple this with Hannah Arendt on love and how to live with the fundamental fear of loss. Then revisit Lauren Isley on the warblers and the wonders of being. That's what it asks you to do. Don't you love following down the rabbit hole of something interesting? I don't know if I'm going to read all of it, but it's got me curious. That's the least. Death is the price of life. Is that how that started? The price of life is death. Yeah. I kind of just want to curl up in a blanket and have this read to me. Oh, if I read it right now, I can just watch this video and just curl up in a blanket and listen to myself reading this to myself. But first, there's the lost words. I feel like someone, oh my gosh, wow. Something so interesting just happened in life. Wow. So, I had been on a call with someone recently. Not that recently, it was some weeks ago. But whenever I'm on calls with people and they send me interesting links, I save them, I bookmark them in this folder, which is called Links from Calls. And I saw that phrase, the lost words, and I'm like, I feel like I've seen that before. And I have. So one of these people from one of these calls gave me a link to this website, thelostwords.org. And then when you open it, there's these dandelion seeds flying, and it's so beautiful. And there's these birds, and underneath the lost words, it says spell songs. And it says, singing nature back to life through the power of poetry, art, and music. And part of this is like a whole event. Is it? I think it's an event. Oh, there's a Spotify album for this. Cool. Anyway, I don't remember exactly what this is. What is it? There's something you can show up to, isn't there? Man, I don't remember. Anyway. Okay, there's spell songs, there's the Lost Words book, there's the Lost Spells book. Doesn't all that sound magical? And so the post that I saw about this quote about joy, that led me to research Maria Popova, that led me to her website, that led me to this essay, I guess, that she wrote that has this image from the lost words. Wow. The person who made that post that led me to this was not the same person that I had the call with. Are they even connected? I don't know. That would be very interesting. Now I want to know. It's like a full circle. It came full circle. Are they connected to each other? No, I don't think so, because, wow, imagine that. Imagine that. Okay. Oh, her own website, Maria Popova's website, explains what the lost words are. It's an illustrated dictionary of poetic spells reclaiming the language of nature. Words belong to each other. Virginia Woolf's melodious voice unspools in the only surviving record of her speech, a 1937 love letter to language. In each word, all words, the French philosopher Maurice Blanchot writes a generation later, as he considers the dual power of language to conceal and to reveal. Dual power of language to conceal and to reveal. But because language is our primary sieve of perception, our mightiest means of describing what we apprehend, and thus comprehending it, words also belong to that which they describe, or rather, they are the conduit of belonging between us and the world we perceive. As the bryologist and the Native American storyteller Robin Wall Kimmerer, I know that name too, observed in her poetic meditation on moss, finding the words is another step in learning to see. Oh, I needed to hear that right now. Because there's something that I have been using one word to describe, and that one word doesn't at all communicate the meaning that I want to communicate. And I've been really hesitant to try and find other words to explain it because I'm almost scared to capture that which I want to explain and communicate. But I like this quote: finding the words is another step in learning to see. I'm really tired, but I need to stay awake for just a little bit, just a tiny bit longer. So, just slowly perusing different curious things online. That's kind of how all of this is happening. Okay. Losing the words then is ceasing to see. A peculiar and pervasive form of blindness that dulls the shimmer of the world. A disability particularly dangerous to the young imagination, just learning to apprehend the world through language. I have so many thoughts in my head. Okay. This quote, losing the words then is ceasing to see. And then it dulls the shimmer of the world. And then it's dangerous. There's this book I read, which is called Ella Minnow P. And it's not L-M-N-O-P. It's Ella, as in E-L-L-A, Minnow, M-I-N-N-O-W, and then P as in P-E-A. It's the name of a person. But in that book, it's kind of like a dictatorship or totalitarian regime that shows up. Not really, but kind of. And there are these rules about letters of the alphabet no longer allowed to be used. That people can't say them and people can't write them. They can't use them at all. And, you know, as you read further in the book, because the entire book is written in letters, as in like Letters and letters. Wow. We use the same word, letters, to mean like the letter A, and like a letter as in like dear so-and-so. Yeah. Anyway, as you keep reading the letters as in dear so-and-so, today this happened and tomorrow maybe we'll see each other, blah, blah, blah. The letters as in like X, Z, K, B, I, they start disappearing as they start becoming banned. And it's a very interesting book. And it's such a topic on my mind right now about words, because I'm trying to increase the number of words I know. That was never something I cared about. And I'm not trying to increase them by like, looking up a specific word and trying to memorize its definition. Not like that. But I'm trying to listen to more audiobooks and read, and not to any random audiobooks, but maybe closer to classic audiobooks, so that I can hear words being used to express something. Because I feel like there's like this slang in my generation and younger generations, and it's the theme is to shorten everything, to shorten all the words, and to use less words, to use the same word for multiple meanings, and just like have the context give the meaning. And I think, okay. And I didn't really care about it, but I do now, because as I'm listening to more audiobooks and I'm hearing more words and I'm seeing how it seems to express more, and both makes me feel more understood and like see that there's more ways to express the world and experience, I find it interesting. Like I want that ability. I want the more words. You can never explain or express anything fully or totally, completely, maybe, but man, when there's more words that you know, that you feel comfortable with, it does open up your mind even to having those longer thoughts and more deeper thoughts and wanderings. It's just a thought. But it worries me, I think. The things that I've been seeing about the younger generation, Gen Alpha. Not necessarily that they're changing their slang and the words that they use, because that happens with every single generation. But I keep reading that like they can't read as well. That it's like a problem in schools, and teachers are seeing it and parents are seeing it, that the kids are not learning to read. And that's worrying. How are we going to think about and imagine what will feel better, or even know how many different stories and types of worlds and perspectives exist without reading and thinking about it? Not just like consuming it through media in like 5 seconds, like spending time with work and philosophy, or just anything. It doesn't have to be philosophy. I think philosophy just is a thing that's like kind of easy to think about and debate, because there's so many perspectives. Okay. In early 2015, when the 10,000 entry Oxford Children's Dictionary dropped around 50 words related to nature, words like fern, willow, and starling, in favor of terms like broadband and cut and paste, some of the world's most prominent authors composed an open letter of protest and alarm at this impoverishment of children's vocabulary and its consequent diminishment of children's belonging to and with the natural world. Wow, I did not know that happened. And yes, wow, I agree. Among them was one of the great nature writers of our time, Robert Macfarlane, a rare descendant from the lyrical tradition of Rachel Carson and Henry Beston, and the visionary who rediscovered and brought to life the stunning forgotten writings of the Scottish mountaineer and poet, Nan Shepherd. Troubled by this loss of vital and vitalizing language, Macfarlane teamed up with illustrator and children's book author Jackie Morris, who had reached out to him to write an introduction for a sort of wild dictionary. She wanted to create a counterpoint to Oxford's erasure. Instead, Macfarlane envisioned something greater. The lost words. A spell book was born. I get it now. An uncommonly wondrous and beguiling act of resistance to the severance of our relationship with the rest of nature, a rerouting into this living world in which, in the words of the great naturalist John Muir, when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Oh, I love that quote. Just as each word is hitched to all words and to the entire web of being. Sometimes I worry that my thinking has started to fade and I've stopped caring about, reading too much, but this very particular moment and today, this very particular day today, I don't think so. Because I'm reading this and some of the names in this essay that this person is quoting, they're familiar to me. I've heard the author Rachel Carson and John Muir. I've heard that quote before. It's used in a wonderful way, but I've heard it before. And 1984 makes me think of the book 1984, which I think is cool. And I was in the bookshop today, bookstore, and I was looking around and I wasn't lost. I wasn't looking blankly at every single book. In fact, for many of them, there were authors, and I'm like, I know this author. I've heard of this author. I maybe haven't heard of this particular book, but I kept seeing it. Also, I'm the type of person that I really kind of believe in intuition with books. Sometimes you go read a book because someone told you they liked it and thinks that you're going to like it. Or you go read a book because you read the blurb and you're curious about the plot. Or you go read a book because you have to because it's assigned for school, right? But have you ever tried going to read a book having no idea what it's going to be about? You just feel with your intuition which book. And maybe you pick out a few and then you lay them out on the table. I've felt these books, and then you lay them out and like which of these that I've picked like really calls me and like feels just interesting, looks interesting, whether it's the cover, the title, something, whatever, and just read that. I have had 3 books show up in my life in this way that have made such a big difference to the stage of life that I was in. Maybe that's a story for another time, but it's like a magic book sense, I think. But also I've written like a little essay about how to pick out a book in this way. I'd like to read that too. If I make that video, I'll link it in the description. Point is, I was at this bookstore and I saw these books and these authors and I knew them. And also I picked out a book for myself in this way of I'm willing to feel which one to read with my intuition, because I picked out a book that I have never heard of before. And all I did was I read like the first paragraph and then I opened it to some middle or almost end page and I read another few sentences. I think it happened to be the perfect sentences because I was like, I want to know how I get from here to here. And I also really like the writing. You open it and there's this feeling that good writing can make you feel like curious to know and open to know without assuming a conclusion. When finally you're reading a book and it's not like cut and paste plots that we learn in school, and it's not a series of something that you're pretty sure you can guess what's going to happen, but when you genuinely don't know. Yeah. So I got myself a book. I really like the writing. I will admit I'm up to like page 35 now, and it has taken a different turn than what I was hoping it would take. But I still like it. Yeah. I feel like anything I read, I can just have so many thoughts about. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool that I'm willing to get a book that I have never heard of before and read it. And like, whatever. If I don't like it, it's whatever. Like, if I get to halfway and I'm like, this is really not what I wanted to read, whatever. I don't have to finish reading it. It's not the end of the world. But I'm really curious about it. And it's really pretty. It's a really pretty book. Anyway, let's see more about this lost words. Whoa. Guys, the universe is like speaking to me right now. Oh my god. Everything is just like, whoa, I'm like capturing a moment of like things are just synchronicities. Is that what this is called? Wow. Okay, so there's this book called A Velocity of Being, Letters to a Young Reader. And it's being shown right next to where I'm scrolling right now in this article. When I was like first randomly making some YouTube videos some years ago, I read that book like on my YouTube videos, and you can still find them. They're like old. And I was like, oh, I'm going to read a letter to a young reader a day. And I would just randomly flip through the book, find a page and read it. And that was the video. And I think I only got through 13, which is funny because, yes, 13 makes sense. I don't know why I stopped, but wow, everything is just like in a circle somehow, like circling back in on itself. Whoa. It's like majorly everything is revealing itself to be connected, just like that quote that we just read. When you try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Wow, goodness. Anyway, while children's experience is at the heart of this quiet masterpiece, MacFarlane and Morris intended the large, lavishly illustrated book for children aged 3 to 100, a book to conjure back the common words and species that are steadily disappearing from everyday life, and especially from children's stories and dreams. A book to catch at the beauty and wonder, but also the eeriness and otherness of the natural world. What emerges is a lyrical encyclopedia of enchantments, radiating the sensibility of classical natural history illustration, but illustrating a more natural future for the generations ahead. Now it's projects like this, these meaningful works, that are also rebellion against something. This is what it inspires me and makes me also feel like, wow, there's people in this world who are working to bring back everything alive and natural, and joy and words and expression. And I hope I'm one of them. Each word occupies 3 lavishly illustrated spreads, a poetic summoning spell, in the form of an acrostic to conjure back the lost word in a rhythmic incantation, composed to be read aloud. A wordless visual eulogy for its vanishment, and a typographic botany of letters spelling it back into language, hearts, minds, and landscape. Yeah, because if you want to spell something back to life, you can't only put it back into language. You have to put it back into hearts, minds, and landscape. And here we have a picture of a dandelion. Do you know how important dandelions are to me? Do you know how much I love that plant? How much of a story there is behind it. How beautiful of a poem I've read about the dandelions. How much I love them as a plant. For they represent the sun and the stars and the moon all in one. Because they're the sun when it's yellow. It's the moon when it's white and fluffy, and it's the stars when all the seeds fly around. And it's medicine. It's not a weed. It's not at all a weed. I don't know who started saying that it's a weed, but as long as you're somewhere in a place that isn't like all pesticide-y, like you can harvest these things, you can eat them. There's honey that's made out of dandelions. There's salad that's made out of dandelions. There's tea. I've made dandelion root tea. I will admit, the root tea, not my favorite. Some people say it tastes like coffee, and I don't like coffee. So, anyway. Once upon a time, I loved the dandelion so much in college that someone called me the dandelion woman. And I liked that. I really liked that. Yeah, because I would go around and collect the dandelions sometimes, and I'd have like a dandelion every single time I entered a classroom when like it was spring and all the dandelions were starting to appear. And I wrote a whole essay to myself about being so sad when the lawnmower came. Oh, I remember that day. That was so, that was a day when I watched the lawnmower cut all the dandelions off. That was horrible. And I wrote such a beautiful page about that. Everything feels connected right now. And I feel like I want to share all of it. Like I want to share the things that I've written and everything that this reminds me of. Man, would that take forever. And here's a poem about a dandelion as I scroll. This is not the one that I know, but this started off really sleepy and philosophical, and this ended up just me feeling like everything's connected, and I have so much to talk about, and I could talk about it for so long. Okay, we're gonna skip the poem for a second. Half a century after Rachel Carson painted in the opening of her epoch-making book, Silent Spring, a dystopian future bereft of birdsong, Macfarlane opens with an image of a world, this world, bereft of the words for birds and plants and other beings, and thus bereft of the regard for and concern with them. Once upon a time, words began to vanish from the language of children. They disappeared so quietly that at first almost no one noticed, fading away like water or stone. The words were those that children used to name the natural world around them. Acorn, adder, bluebell, bramble, conker, gone. I only know acorn. I don't know what an adder is, or a bramble, or a conker. Fern, heather, kingfisher, otter, raven, willow, wren, all of them, gone. The words were becoming lost, no longer vivid in children's voices, no longer alive in their stories. You hold in your hands a spellbook for conjuring back these lost words. To read it, you will need to seek, find, and speak. It deals in things that are missing and things that are hidden, in absences and appearances. It is told in gold, the gold of the goldfinches that flit through its pages and charms, and it holds not poems but spells of many kinds that might just, by the old, strong magic of being spoken aloud, unfold dreams and songs and summon lost words back into the mouth and the mind's eye. Yes. Ooh, I want to get this book. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. And she ends this article with giving something else. It's like she curates every single article for how to pair things together, which quotes, which writers, which authors, which paintings, and to be able to curate something like this. Yes, that is what I want to learn to do. Complement the lost words, the splendor and enchantment of which no digital screen can convey, with Susan Sontag on the conscience of words, and Walt Whitman on the wisdom of trees. Then revisit the lovely, lost in translation, an illustrated dictionary of beautifully untranslatable words from around the world. This is all so beautiful. The Wisdom of Trees by Walt Whitman. On what our silent friends teach us about being rather than seeming. Walt Whitman, he's written some amazing poems. Have you ever heard of the poem Leaves of Grass? I read that in college as part of one of my classes, one of my seminars. But I've carried that poem with me ever since. Right, and I put that poem on my collage where I also put dandelions, where I also put Nausicaa, which is a movie by Studio Ghibli, and I made this big collage, and it feels like all of this is like relating almost to that collage right now. And I curated an art exhibit in my college, and I was so proud of it. It was called, what was it? Something with trees, but it was something about trees. Something about trees. I was so proud of it because there were things that I had painted myself, and I got the entire library gallery in order to put all this art that I painted, that I drew, that the collage that I made with these dandelions and the trees, and and I was just so proud because I wasn't an art student. The art students in my college, they each got one painting, one piece of art that they could show, and they had to put it together in one gallery. And I found some loopholes. I just asked enough people enough questions. I was like, hey, look, I see the gallery space is empty. Can I show my art in it? Can I curate an exhibit? And the librarian was like, yes, we would love to have something here. And I was like, yes. And I got to have an entire art gallery, even though I was not an art student and my art was showing there. No, I was a math student. At one point I was a physics student. I graduated as a math student. And I got to curate an entire art exhibit of my art. I am so tired. I cannot read more of this. But thanks for hanging out. This was just a going down the rabbit hole of something. Oh my gosh, speaking of rabbit holes, I saw a picture on one of these articles that was about Alice in Wonderland, and that's also an amazing book. And did you know that the person who wrote Alice in Wonderland, which is a super famous book, right? He's a mathematician. He's a mathematician, and he was a writer, and it's just everything is just amazing. Okay, I literally cannot keep reading things right now. But yeah, I'm glad. This was a very nice thing that brought me lots of joy and inspiration. And I think, indeed, what I have just done is an allegiance to aliveness. Yes. I think I have read about allegiance to aliveness, and I think I have experienced it. When we have learned how to listen to trees, then the brevity and the quickness and the childlike hastiness of our thoughts achieve an incomparable joy. Now that's a full circle quote to end on.